Channel 4.
Chinook transport helicopters clatter onto the desert floor, disgorging platoons of U.S. Marines exercising while time remains.
You got to make sure that only one of them's digging in, the other one's providing security, okay?
The Marine Corps has had plenty of media exposure in a war which, for these men, hasn't yet started, as they practice maneuvers near the Kuwaiti frontier, and they need the practice, according to one officer.
One man's supposed to be providing security and one man's supposed to be digging. The guys who were digging, you know, had their butts stuck up in the air and get them shot right off. So my job is to go around and make sure they're not doing stuff like that, you know, so they take care of each other.
The soldiers and officers explained what the purpose of such exercise really is.
Well, it was as realistic as possible. The only thing that wasn't there was the enemy, of course.
Well, it's very realistic, basically. You always train realistically. You never can tell when something may go off, so.
It focuses the individual Marine. I think it wakes a few of them up to the realities that we face.
But what exactly are the realities of mass desert warfare? None of these men knows. Those who do are a few miles off, well dug in, the Iraqi army. And with that in mind, the U.S. Gulf Commander General Schwarzkopf has been touring desert troops in what's seen as a final morale booster.
Okay, 5 minutes of unimportant questions, all right? Nothing too tough.
General Schwarzkopf also used this trip to defend the Allied air bombing.
We are not indiscriminately targeting civilian targets, and I think that the very action of the Iraqis themselves demonstrates that they know damn well that we're not attacking civilian targets. Since right now they've dispersed their airplanes into residential areas, they've moved their headquarters into schools, they've moved their headquarters into hotel buildings, they put guns and things like that on top of high-rise apartment buildings. Under the Geneva Convention, that gives us a perfect right to go after those things if we wanted to, and we haven't done it.
But some who will actually have to face Iraqi artillery talk in different tones, like one exhausted Marine who's been on the border longer than most, confronting the fear of land war.
The fear that it's going to start peaceful resolution of the world didn't happen. Casualties. Will my troops make it home? Will I make it home? If I do make it home, will it be the wheelchair syndrome and a lot of unknowings of what I don't know about them.
About the Iraqis?
Yeah, we pretty much up to date. Saddam has carried everything through that he said he was going to. The only thing that he hasn't, he said he had chemicals and chemicals in landmines, and that's part of the ground forces.
Is that your greatest fear?
No, the greatest fear is, will I live through this? Will my men live through this? How my family will go on without... I think that's the worst fears.
And hundreds, possibly thousands, may die.
Yes, it seems that he's not going to give in, and it's going to go to a ground war. And anytime you get a ground war, it's 1 versus 1, and gets real nasty on the ground.
A lot of people die.
A whole lot of people. Can you get your casualties out? Are you able to get your casualties out? And a ground war, there's nowhere to run because you're in everybody's line of fire.
Signs of a ground war coming closer in the Persian Gulf as Iraq continues to insist the bomb bunker was filled only with civilians.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Tonight, America at war.
Good evening. While American officials at the highest level continue to say publicly there is no hurry on the ground war, there are more and more signs tonight it may be sooner rather than later. NBC's Fred Francis is at the Pentagon on the mounting evidence. Fred?
Tom, there are significant military developments tonight. Pentagon sources say they are close, very close to the point of having destroyed or badly damaged more than 50% of Iraq's best tanks, and Allied forces are now moving into place to begin the ground offensive. In preparation for the ground war, the U.S. is moving a fourth aircraft carrier, the USS America, to join the Roosevelt, the Midway, and the Ranger in the Persian Gulf. The extra warplanes will fly air cover over attacking Allied troops. One official told NBC News it is now time to move, that many of Iraq's remaining tanks are now covered completely with sand, hard to see, literally buried and in revetments to escape the bombs and missiles fired by pilots of attack jets.
It's hard to, and I tell you, unless you're right over top of it, it's hard to tell which revetments have anything in it. So.
The Pentagon reported today that 1,300 of Iraq's 4,200 tanks are now confirmed kills, and the real number of tanks out of action is much greater.
So I would say that we've gotten maybe 30% or so, arithmetically, and there could be another 10, 15 or more % that are just not operational.
The main land attack options are centered around the American heavy tank divisions from Europe, now in place in the barren Saudi desert well west of Kuwait. That's over 800 tanks with attack helicopter support. Those armored columns can blitzkrieg into Iraq, head north to Baghdad, cut into the soft defenses in western Kuwait, or hook around to strike the much vaunted but now badly mauled and disoriented Republican Guards.
The bombing campaign, particularly the 24-hour aspect where they're not getting any sleep, there's no rest, psychologically it's affecting them, but just as importantly, they're suffering casualties both in equipment but also in men and materiel.
Other U.S. Army, British, French, Arab, and Marine divisions, not necessarily positioned in this way, will begin probing actions into the southern Iraqi ranks in Kuwait, and the U.S. Marines will come ashore somewhere on the coast. But at no time, say Pentagon sources, will those units linger in range of Iraqi artillery, the principal weapon Saddam has to deliver poison gas.
If we're required to conduct land operations against the Iraqi forces, they're going to get a big surprise because we're going to lead in with our bombs, and behind our bombs is going to be artillery, and we'll take their artillery out.
NBC News has been told that the most important Republican Guard unit, the Talkalna Division, has already had half its artillery and tanks destroyed. And as U.S. and Allied armies await orders to attack north, everything not covered with sand on the battlefield will be attacked by Allied aircraft. Tom?